Hi everyone, this is Lana. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here and thank you for all your shares, likes, and subscribes. I'm really happy that many of you are joining this channel, this tribe. And I wanted to come up and talk today a little bit about what's going on with the energies going into the equinox and what I have been personally experiencing, the invisible realms, a little bit in the energetic realms, so that it may help some of you who are experiencing this as well. So we are continuously integrating all of these portals and activations, and we have many key dates, and also the astrology has been pretty intense, pretty amazing also. But when this happens, we need more time to rest and more time to integrate. So what I have been feeling is at the energetic level, because we are evolving and we are expanding our consciousness, there are times where we are pulled by our soul or are nudged to revisit and reconsider the things that we did in the past. So very specific moments of our past that were very decisive for our soul's path. So you may be getting information about these events in your life that had like a pivoting effect in your life at that time. And especially I think the moments that are coming into focus are moments where your soul took the lead instead of your ego or instead of the lower mind. So moments where you really aligned with who you are, when you aligned with your soul's path, with that path that has your heart, with that path that has your soul, or very important times where you discovered something very precious and valuable about yourself. So this may be even in childhood, this may be in your teenage years. I'm encouraging you to stay a little bit open. If you see any messages about that, it can be through music or through photographs or through going to places. For me, I have been experiencing this a lot. First of all, because I'm currently in a place where I used to spend all my childhood's summers. So I was revisiting a lot of things that happened during that time. But also at the same time, through a movie, I wanted to talk a little bit about this because it was very special to me, or very meaningful in a way. So when you start awakening and when you start becoming more conscious, the way you perceive the world starts to change. So instead of having this feeling of the outside world dictating things to you or what you should do, you start to see the world as opportunities and messages, and everything that is presented to your particular reality it has some kind of information for you. It has a lesson, it has a purpose, and it has a meaning. So it doesn't matter if we really know the meaning of everything that we experience, and it's not so that you're just looking into finding meaning or symbols or synchronicities through everything, but it is to just be open to know that whatever is coming your way, if you can stay in that state of receptivity, you can open yourself up and go deeper into the reason why that is presenting right now. So I was here and I was watching. I never watch TV, but where I'm staying at, there's a TV. So I started just like looking to see, oh, I haven't seen TV in like a long time. So I wanted to like see what's going on. And there was a movie playing, and I just started to watch it just very like out of curiosity. And it was very funny because it was a story of, I don't even know how the movie is called, and I just saw the beginning. But the story was of this girl who goes abroad to another country, and she goes to a boarding school, and she's about 15 years old. And I kept on watching that movie because when I was 15, I went abroad to another country completely different than mine. And I was there when I was 15. I actually turned 16 while being in that boarding school. So that was the first moment when I experienced reality alone by myself, and through a like longer period of time, and where I like reconfigured the way I saw the world, completely separated from the ideas that I had grown up with. So I went to Germany, of course, and I was at this boarding school in Berlin. And I didn't know that the people the students that were there were actually children with a lot of problems. So it wasn't like a regular boarding school, but it was a boarding school for children who had endured a lot of violence or had very difficult family situations where they couldn't live with their parents, so they had to be in that boarding school. And I landed there because I did the whole paperwork myself because I wanted to go. So I didn't really know where I was going, and the people from the boarding school didn't even know how old I was. So I was put into these independent rooms where I was only sharing with one person, because those were the rooms where the kids who were older, who were like 18 or so, went before they started to live on their own. So it was kind of like a preparation step for them to have more independence. So I wasn't sleeping at the dorms where there were like 5 or 6 children in one bedroom, well, sharing one space. So I was there, and through watching this movie, I was reminded of that time. And it was very funny because I remember that the first day that I was at the boarding school, I had just gotten to know a couple of kids there, and that night there was a fire drill. So we all had to go out in our pajamas and run out of the building because there was this fire alarm going on. And when I was watching the movie the first night, this girl is in that boarding school, there is a fire alarm and she has to go out in pajamas. So I thought it was super strange that it was exactly the same story as mine in this movie that I had no idea of. So I really saw like the message in it, that it had to do with my own experience. So I went to, like, in my mind, I went back to that time. And I remember that in that boarding school, because I had left my family in my country and I was there alone, I started to focus a lot on the problems that my friends had. And I remember that I would listen to them, and slowly I think the word got around or something, and a lot of them came to my room, and they would just like sit on my bed or sit on a couch, and they would tell me their stories. So I started to I kind of became like a little therapist there. I started to listen to these stories, and I started to realize how different of an experience they had than mine, and how different we were in so many ways, but how close we were when we were sharing these things. So that was the first time where I really felt in my heart that this was something that I wanted to do, and this was something that I enjoyed doing. So, and I also saw the power of just listening to someone. Sometimes a lot of the healing, and this was like further on in my practice, that I started to realize that sometimes even just the simple offering your space, offering space for someone to tell their stories, to say, to express themselves, can be extremely healing for them, and also for us, also for the person who's listening. So I just wanted to bring this up for you, because I feel like because everything is accelerating, and all the people who are awakened and all the souls that are awakening, you're being pushed, some gently, some not so gently, as I have said before, to go in your mission, to find out your purpose, to find where you can do something that really fills up your soul, and then to share that. But the important thing is that you find that thing that really fills you up, that really gives you a purpose for being here, that really makes you feel like you belong. And I know that many times we don't feel like that, and that there are different circumstances depending on what we have lived. But the same way that you can hold space for someone and listen to them, that's what, for me, the spiritual practice does for oneself. So the way you can hold space for other people, you can do the same for you in your spiritual practice. That's basically what you do. If you have a spiritual practice every day where you sit down and give yourself these 10 minutes, give yourself half an hour or 1 hour to express yourself, to listen to yourself, to really go inside of your soul, go inside of your heart, and be with yourself. This is incredibly nurturing, and it can really help you refocus and recenter, and give you the energy and the power and the determination you need to cope with the outside world, to make decisions, to have the strength to face the challenges. Because we are being presented with a lot of challenges, and especially the ones of you who are just awakening, or who have been awakening to your divine purpose, to spirituality, to a spiritual practice. The first years are kind of the hardest in a way, or I don't want to put these tags on things, but in my experience, my awakening was really hard. It was very intense, and many times I didn't know what was up, what was down. There were so many things that were happening at the same time, because we integrate so much energy into the physical. And especially if you're clairvoyant or clairaudient, or you're starting to develop these abilities, or these gifts are just showing up or presenting themselves out of the blue, I know that it can be very, very hard and very challenging to cope with them, especially if you don't have someone that you can talk to about this stuff, or if you don't have a support or a community that understands what you're going through. So most of us light workers, and especially the ones who had their awakening in the early 2000s, I think most of us went through this pretty alone, in a very lonely basis. So now that's why I love this gift of the internet, of YouTube, to be able to bring these messages to the people who will be guided to listen to them. And I hope that this can bring some help and some light, and shine some light on these things that you're going through, that we're all going through, because you're really not alone. We're all going through, and there's going to be even more people who will be starting to awaken to this. And as you go into your journey, into your path, you will also be guiding the people who, or you will be able to guide, if you wish to do this, you'll be able to guide the people who are just starting their awakening, because you will already have the experience and the tools to navigate this. So I just wanted to share that in case you are also being brought to these moments in your life where it's kind of like your destiny was shown, or this part of you connected with that spark, with that higher energy in yourself, and you knew that this was something that you're meant to do. So if you had that impulse, and if you lost it along the way, or if you ended up doing something totally different, I would encourage you to go back and to relive that state of being, that energetic state, because that can really help you connect to that spark in you. And to also be what they were showing me, or what my guides, what I was receiving from Spirit through these days, was also that it's very important to connect to the inner child, to always bring the inner child to the table, to always bring the inner child with you in your journey, and to let it express, to let that part of you, that innocence in you, that part of you that enjoys having fun and being adventurous and has no fear, and that part of us that is completely innocent, before we get all these programs and all these imprints and all these belief systems into our minds, that part of you that holds that energy, that innocence, it can, if you connect with that and if you nurture that energy, it can really help you even in the most mundane problems and situations that you may be facing. Just to know that you are the same being, that you hold that energy, and if you want to, you can shift into that energy of strength, of innocence, of power, of wisdom, and also of joy and of fun. Our soul guides us to our purpose through what makes us feel good. So if whatever you're doing is not making you feel good, it's not making you feel peaceful, feel alive, feel good that you're here, then it's probably a sign to start looking more deeply into what does bring you that, because we are here to experience that, and through that that's like, for me, that's the access point into our mission. So whatever makes us feel whole and complete and good and enjoying. And of course, I'm not talking about escapism, and just going into the things that make you feel good, because that's just one part of the spectrum. But if you have been disconnected from that side of you, that's a part that should always be nurtured and fed, as well as the other part, as well as your spiritual work, as well as your commitment to yourself, as well as your spiritual practice, as well as having this discipline with yourself and this discipline of loving yourself too. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. I'm not saying it's just very easy, and actually it's pretty hard to do that, and sometimes we even need tools in order to be able to connect with that joyous part in ourselves and with that innocence in ourselves. But I think if we put it in our consciousness to look for it and to connect with it, it becomes easier every day. So I wanted to talk about a little bit of about the twin flames as well. So what I have been getting for the divine feminines is a lot of like another clearing of the whole womb space, and also like all the sacral chakra, all the sacral channels. And this is something that we have been doing constantly, but a lot of issues and traumas and unprocessed situations are being cleansed out again at this time. So connecting to your divine feminine power, to your divine feminine energy, being aware that this is happening, connecting to women, connecting to other sisters, creating this community. If you want, you can join us in the full moon gatherings that I do. This is in order to do that, precisely to create a community between sisters, between women, to support each other, to heal together, and to use the power of the divine feminine to anchor it more fully into our bodies, and to cherish our bodies, to nurture our bodies, and to nurture ourselves, to give us that time to be in like a sacred communion with other women and with ourselves. So you're all invited to these gatherings. They're free and they happen every month on the full moon. And I always leave the link below in the description box. So we're having a lot of this womb clearing again, and this involves past lifetimes, any sexual trauma, abuse, and also abuse of power, like anywhere where you didn't say no, or anywhere where you didn't exert your power and set your boundaries, and anywhere where your power was overwritten or where it was disregarded. These are things, these situations may come up to the surface, maybe from the past memories, or through the unconscious, through dream state. So be ready to let this go through you, to be released out of your body. And if you can do a bath ritual, that would be wonderful. If you can take baths with salt, if you have a bathtub, or if not, then you can just put salt water in a bowl and just pour it over your body and set the intention for it to cleanse. So anything that you can do to treat your body, to aid your body in this release would be wonderful. Also, if you want, you can even do like a womb massage to yourself, like with using the wisdom of the Divine Mother, connecting to the Divine Mother within you, and just doing these massages in your womb area. It will really help to bring in the nurturance and the self-love to help release these past pains, because it's a lot release through the pain body. And also with this, we have the release of fears. So of old fears of being attacked, of being persecuted, fears of being abused, fears of other people, and also fears of exerting your own power. So fears of claiming your divinity, of claiming your sovereignty, of claiming your place in the world, fears of doing your mission, fears of being who you really are, fears of being seen, of being heard. All these things that limit us, self-limitation, self-sabotage, and also the fear of the unknown. So if you're feeling any of this, it's normal. It's something that we're clearing at a collective level. But please do treat it. Do go, if you want to go to a healer, go to someone who can help you in this release. If you cannot do it by yourself, it's always good to have someone else who can assist you. And if not, you can also do this through your spiritual practice. So if you meditate, you can set the intention to liberate these things, to be connected with love, and to bring in light into all these places that are holding darkness, that are holding fears, that are holding belief systems that are ready to be let go of. And of course, if you want to work with me on this, if you need assistance with this, I'm here too. So I know that many of you divine feminines are starting like new projects, new lives. Many are kind of like changing careers, changing paths, starting new, starting over. This was the whole, like from 2017 up until now, there was this period of revising our lives, and really making sure that you are where your soul wants to be. So if you were doing something that wasn't fulfilling you, that wasn't bringing you joy and happiness and peace of mind, you're probably have had a lot of conflict in that area. It may be work, it may be a relationship, it may be whatever that wasn't that hadn't had a strong foundation, and a foundation with the heart. That is the thing that may have been crumbling. Or even if it had at one point, if it stopped having that feeling for you, if it stopped fulfilling you at some point, it's just a sign to change, to let it go, to close out these cycles, to close out these situations, these relationships, and wind them down and come into a place of creating space. So when we let go of these things that no longer serve us, that's when we can create space for something new to come in. And as I always say, I know this is a process that can be very scary. Sometimes there is a lot of loss in the process, and you feel like you're stripped out of everything you had and everything you thought you were and you owned, and you come into this 0 point. And this is also true for divine masculines, by the way. And when this happens, the thing is that it's kind of a way of, I lost everything. There's nothing left to lose. Why don't I take a chance on what I really want to do? So some of us need those kind of like more hardcore lessons in order to take a chance on ourselves and to take a chance on what we always wanted to do. So if you're going through that right now, please know that you are supported, and your higher self is there, your team of spiritual guides is there. So please ask for help, connect to God, connect to the divinity in you, and ask for all the help, the support, and all the guidance that you need for this time, and all the strength that you need as well. I remember when I was going through something like this, I was literally like, everything that I had to let go of, everything. And it included part of like the identity that I had built somehow, the world where I was being, where I was working, and it involved a lot of things that were very tied into my emotions and to things that I always thought I wanted. And then when I really saw all of this, I understood that it was part of my learning experience, of my growing experience, but it wasn't really where my soul wanted to be. And so when all of these things were taken away, I was really like in a ground zero point where I was like, well, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do right now. And I know many of you are in that place. But so what I would do is I would ask God for the strength and for the guidance, and I would just like surrender my will to God's will. And this is something that we tend to resist a lot, especially if we are too involved or too invested in our 3D world. That's when it's the hardest to really surrender your will to the divine will, or to your higher self, to your divine power, because you're too focused in this thing that is closer to you, in this 3D world, in the way things are playing out, and in controlling that world. but it's really something that is not really in your control. So when we let go of control, or when the control is taken out of our hands, that's when we feel the most vulnerable. But that's when we also open up, and we open our hearts, and we open our spirits to see the higher perspective, to see the higher truth, and to see why we actually came here, why are we here, why we're alive, and what our purpose is in this world. Or we start to get redirected into that place, into that path. So really, it's a gift. It's one of the greatest gifts that we can receive. But of course, when we are in that process, it doesn't feel like a gift at all. But many of the greatest spiritual lessons that we learn, sometimes we learn the hard way. And something that you can do in order to reassert yourself, and maybe to build up more confidence in this moment, especially the divine feminines, if you're going through all these changes, is I would encourage you to revise your life, and to see the really, really hard lessons, the really, really hard times, to think about that, and think about what positive things did they bring, or what lessons did they bring into your life. And I'm sure you will see that in every hardship, in every a tragedy, and everything that you survived, there was a gift, and there was a very, very high spiritual gift. So I would encourage you to see that, and to acknowledge that, and to know that whatever you're going through, there will be a gift there, and you will be able to see it sooner than later. Okay? And for the divine masculine, for the divine feminine also, what was coming through was, I have been talking about this sexual energy a little bit in my videos. I haven't gone too in depth with this, because I usually go more into depth in the full moon gatherings. But the reason why I always bring that up is because through our sexuality and through our sexual energy, we're also clearing all these energies of the womb, and all these energies of abuse, and all these things that we endured, because we have to clear the body of all of this, and because we're in the 3D, we have to clear the physical body as well. So there are practices nowadays that are being led by many women. I really love anything that involves body positivity, anything that involves sacred sexuality. So I would encourage you to look into that, to see how sexuality can actually be completely spiritual, or actually for me it is something very, very spiritual, very, very sacred. And to start relating to your body and to your sexuality as something that is sacred. To your period, when you have your moon cycle, to the act of communing with someone else, of having sex, like bringing this sacred sexuality into that, and learning about sacred sexuality. There's a lot of information, and there are a lot of great teachers out there who are starting to bring this knowledge out, and it's basically part of the new spiritual paradigm, from what I see from my standpoint. But because it was a subject that was taboo for many, many, many centuries, and because women were always kind of put in special boxes, or put like in these limiting conditions, what we're doing now is we're opening, and we're bringing down the walls, and we are reconnecting, rewiring with a higher frequency. So also in those channels, the sexual channels are being rewired, and we are cleansing them, and we are purifying, each one of us, but also at a collective level. So I would advise you to like if you can, to start to build a new healthier sacred relationship with your sexuality, of if there are any fears there, of really solving these fears, healing these fears, working with energy to solve this. This is a very, very beautiful tool if you do energy work, or you go to a healer that does energy work. I have done a lot of healings in this particular subject, and you can see a lot of difference, a lot of change, because it's basically reconnecting the bodies and removing the blockages, which are fears. They are like, I see them kind of even as rocks, like very, very hard matter in the body, which is not allowing the free flow of energy. And when it's not allowing the free flow of energy, that's when you feel like very static, and like there is no relaxation of the body. That's when the body becomes like stiff. And we are, the more relaxed we are, the more we can receive the divine energy, and the more we receive the divine energy, the more we can clear out everything that was obstructing this. So it's very, very important. And also, if you are doing this womb clearing and you're starting to get the knowledge and the wisdom and the intuition to do this, there are very wonderful tools right now. I really encourage the crystals and doing work with jade eggs or with obsidian eggs. They are wonderful, but please be mindful of how you do it. If you do use them, that you have someone, a teacher or someone that you're working with, that is like guiding you through the process. And these can be wonderful tools to reconnect with your sexuality, with your sexual pleasure, and with the sexual experience as a sacred experience, rather than something that is scary or painful, or that has any traumatic imprints in there. So the more we clear and the more we purify our bodies, and the more we bring in this sacred sexuality, and the more we activate these sexual channels, the more we're able to receive from the world as well. So it is very related to the abundance that we have in our lives. If you are not expressing yourself sexually, if you are very closed off in that area, it's probably reflecting either in your abundance, in your money, in your career. There will be most likely a reflection of this somewhere in your life. So this is a subject that I really want to talk about, because I don't think it's talked about often enough. And we address a lot of emotional things, a lot of spiritual, mental things, but it's very important to address the body, the physical, but also the sexual aspects. It's important to see this, to recognize this, and to recognize ourselves as women, but also as these sexual beings, as having this part of us that is innate, and that is also our creativity, our power, our birth power. That's the part of us that brings life to the planet. So it's a very, very primary divine aspect, and it should be honored, and it should be taken care of, and it should be protected. Okay? And for the divine masculine, on that note as well, I feel like there's a lot of refocusing for the divine masculine, like where before there were so many things going on in their lives, or there was so much that was being rearranged in the divine masculine energy of the collective. Right now, it's like these things are starting to come into one. It's like they're starting to merge into one focus, into one direction. So for the divine masculine, I also encourage you to also start to be mindful of your sexual energy, especially nowadays that we have all these things with social media and whatnot, that you can, where you see that you are putting a lot of energy into different things, into different women, into different, like areas. It's okay to invest in different parts, but it's also very important that you learn how to preserve your light, how to preserve your energy, and how to bring it into one point and focus it into one to be able to expand further. So I was listening to this podcast from Brian Reeves, which I recommend a lot for divine masculines. He talks a little about spirituality, but I think he makes it more practical and more simple in a way for men. He does these podcasts on iTunes, I think, and on his website, where he talks about the experiences of men. And there was this one where he was talking about how there is this leaking of energy, and how men, especially like in social media and all of these things, that they tend to, like, for example, follow a lot of women and a lot of models and things like that. And it was funny because he was actually saying that when he started to have this relationship with his partner, that he stopped being in Instagram, stopped following all of these people, because he knew that it was detrimental for him and for his relationship to his partner. So, and there's this part of the divine masculine energy and of the masculine aspect that is very important to know yourself and to know your energy, and to know when you are being driven by, let's say, your impulse, and when you're being driven by, or when that impulse is aligned with divinity. So it's the same as what I was talking about before, but it's very important in the sexual aspect as well, because I have seen that, for example, men that have a lot of like different partners and different relationships, and are always going from one to another, and just like very not committed, and in any of those, that generates a lot of confusion sometimes in the mental body and in the emotional state, because it kind of makes this creates this kind of program of addiction of a certain emotional state that is achieved through sexuality. So instead of like using the sexuality to honor the partner and to honor yourself and to uplift yourself, it's used as as a coping mechanism. So that's when it becomes something that can be very dangerous, because if it becomes a coping mechanism, it becomes something that is draining your energy. And your sexual energy for men is also something that is very, very important. And the more you learn how to focus it, the more it can help you grow as an individual, and the more you can focus on your divine mission and on the other things that are important in your life. So it kind of builds up this strength, and this strength of character, and also this strength of really being able to show up fully. So instead of showing up in parts, or like showing up a little bit with each person, you become instead of becoming like split it into all of these different directions. When you honor that energy, you become how do I say it? Your projection becomes stronger, and you become like whole. So you can project and you can be fully with anyone with whom you decide to be. But it's no longer just a part of you and the other part is running. So I would encourage you to go in and to really see if there are any parts of you that are developing or that are acting out of an impulse and are creating coping mechanisms, because it can be sexuality, That's a very common way of coping with emotional things, but it can also be, over-exercising, or food, or overworking, or I don't know, like, or avoiding situations, when the masculine go into the avoidant energy, that is like the part of the runner. That is a part of the energy that is running away from something, because it thinks that it doesn't have the strength to face it. But I am encouraging you to build up your strength, to build up your energy, to save up your energy in order to build that strength to face anything that is presented to you. Because the more you practice this, the more you do that, when things happen, to show up fully, to be there, and to go in with all the consequences. When you practice this, it really builds up your strength. It really builds up your divine masculine energy, and it kind of makes you invincible. If you can face anything that comes your way with the same love, with the same heart, and with also, very important, to have that self-love and that self-compassion while you're doing that, then nothing can ever shake you. That's when you become the divine masculine. That's when you embody that divine masculine energy. And when you are in that energy, the divine feminine energy will be completely attracted to you. It will be completely pulled. So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And for the divine masculines that are struggling, or that are not knowing what to do in regards to their twin, I would encourage you to work on this. If anything that I said resonated, or if it applied even in the smallest way, I would encourage you to do the work in that, to also learn about a sacred sexuality, to also learn about these practices, and how to harness your energy, how to use it for yourself, and how to use your sexual energy in order to show up more fully in your world. And this will immediately help you in your relationship, because it will shift your energy, and it will shift the energy of your connection. Okay, so let me see. I think this is what I wanted to talk about. And so for both energies, and for everyone, just to encourage you to be in this receptive mode, and to take your time, take the time that you need to relax, and to bring in that receptivity, that peace, and that peace of mind to your lives. So I will be in New York next week, and if any of you want to do a healing session with me, let me know. I will put the details down below. You can book your session for New York on my website under Book Online, and I will be giving healings to assist in wherever you have. They will be 1 hour or 1.5 hours long, depending. And I hope I get to meet a lot of you there. And I will have the live chat on Saturday, so if you have any questions about twin flames, or of anything that I talked about today, you can ask them there, and we will have a nice healing, group healing and conversation, and do whatever comes up during that day. Okay? I'm sending you many blessings, and a lot of courage, and a lot of love.